So apparently, Glyn, you and I are the Whitehouse and Mortimer of the podcasting world. Whitehouse and Mortimer with sheep, apparently.
I don't know how to take that.
No, I don't know whether it's an insult or what. And equally, I don't know who's who. Are you Whitehouse or are you Mortimer?
I don't know. It would probably help if I'd watched that.
Have you not seen it?
Program they do. I haven't even seen it.
Oh, well, this is completely pointless then, because you've got no idea what I'm talking about. It's,
hopefully some of the listeners might do.
Yeah, you know who they are, though.
I know who they are, yeah.
Yeah, you've just never seen it. It is very funny. I mean, it's all about fishing, and I'm not a fisherman, but it is a very funny programme, and I do like both those guys. So
okay, well, that gives me an incentive to watch it anyway, if nothing else.
And then you can decide which one you are. But,
yeah.
I think based on his accent alone, I'm Paul Whitehouse, because he comes from my neck of the woods.
Yeah, and I guess I'm a northerner, although I'm northwest rather than northeast. So I'm the Mortimer.
But we can thank Alice Cambray for that.
But actually, Bob Mortimer, he's a lot older than me. Hang on a minute, what am I signing up to here?
Yeah, well, I think they both are.
Yeah. How old's Bob Mortimer then?
Oh, about 103, I think.
62, you see.
Oh, well, he's nearer me.
Yeah.
He's still younger than me, but there you go.
Okay, welcome to another Hidden Wiltshire podcast. We're up to, I don't know how many we're up to now, I can't keep count.
20, so it's number 20.
20, so many.
This must be an anniversary of some sort.
I know. We're getting close to serious numbers on this now.
Yeah, it'll be our silver anniversary soon.
Yeah, silver anniversary. My name is Glyn and I run the Hidden Wiltshire project, and with me this week I have, as usual, my podcasting partner.
Paul Timlett, who also carries his bags for him.
You didn't carry them at the weekend, though. I got my son to do that.
No, I didn't. He did a sterling job.
Which actually, we can talk about that, I guess.
Can we? Should we? I don't know.
Well, we can give a teaser.
Yeah, all right, go on.
So what we've been doing over the last 2 weeks? Well, at the weekend we were out. We spent the whole of Saturday over by Milk Hill and explored up on the top there, the Wansdyke, Adam's Grave, etc. All the stuff around there. Knapp Hill, Golden Ball Hill, and then we came down into the villages, Alton Barnes and Alton Priors, and throughout all of this day-long process, we had a local with us, David Carson, whose family have farmed the Milk Hill area since the 1880s, so if there's anything that he doesn't know about Alton Barnes and Alton Priors and Milk Hill, then it's not worth knowing. But we also had a video camera, because we were actually recording something. So at some point in the future, we will have a podcast, because I'll pull the audio down to a podcast, and we will have what do you call it? A vidcast? Videocast?
I think they call them vlogs, don't they?
Vlogs?
Video blogs.
Yeah, we'll have a video blog, which will document everything. So that was a really interesting day. Thanks to David for giving us all of his time. I think we all quite enjoyed it, actually. I especially enjoyed being taken up to Adam's Grave in a Land Rover. That's always an exciting experience. But yeah, it was good.
Well, you were in the back of it.
No, I know.
But we had our two trusty assistants. So your son Rowan and my son Adam were there, sort of shooting the film for us whilst we tried to avoid getting our faces on camera.
I think, thankfully, we've got plenty of landscape shots to intersperse, so maybe we can have less video of us talking and more video of us talking over landscape shots, if you see what I mean.
It's just becoming a bit of a thing now, isn't it? Shooting a bit of film. So there was a little video I put on the Facebook group the other day about a place near here where there used to be some cottages, and it's a place I I very much like and I go to quite frequently. So I posted a little sort of video of that and a little sort of story about how it might have looked years gone by, and it's called Down Barn Cottages on Maddington Down, which is just outside Shrewton, and my chum Paul Clifton, who lives opposite me, who's a transport correspondent for the BBC, and who is also on the closed Facebook group, so he's not only a follower but he's a contributor. He sort of reminded me that he'd shot a piece of film there with the BBC earlier on this year, and I'd forgotten all about it. And in fact, it was the day that he caught me with my head in a puddle looking for fairy shrimps. And I think I did talk about that on a podcast, and I knew there were fairy shrimps up there somewhere, and I hadn't seen them before. And there I was on my hands and knees staring into this puddle, and the BBC film crew came down the track and caught me at it. Anyway, that was the day that Paul recorded this little piece, and anyway, he said he forgot about it as well, because it was back in June, and then the BBC aired it on just the local news programme. Called what's it called? South Today. South Today. So sort of 6:30, but because it's in the southern part of the county, southern part of Wiltshire, whereas people sort of west and the north tend to point more towards Bristol. I think you get points west, don't you?
Points west, yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of people wouldn't have seen it. So anyway, Paul had sent me the little film, and I put that on the Facebook group yesterday. It's about 2 minutes 20 seconds or something, but it's quite interesting. It's about the holloways that sort of lead up to that part of the plain, and we talk a lot about holloways, and people will sort of, if anybody wondered what a holloway was, well, you can see Paul Clifton walking along a couple of these holloways, and then he sort of visits the place where I shot my crappy bit of footage. They shot it properly with a BBC cameraman at this place where in the 1800s there would have been 2 cottages and a barn. I thought it was 3 cottages, but again, the aforementioned Alice Cambray has done some research, and she reckons there were 2 cottages there and a barn, and they were there and sort of occupied in the sort of mid to late 19th century, early part of the 20th century. And now there's nothing left because the MOD took it over and for training, and the buildings have been demolished. But Paul's film is fantastic because it really shows it in its setting, and then he sort of looks up the valley to the 1917 film set with the pond with the tree, or the pond that is no longer there, and some of the other sort of locations where they shot the film. So it's well worth a little watch. Only 2 minutes 20 seconds. It's a very charming little piece of footage.
Okay, I think I've got a copy of it, so I'll stick it on the YouTube channel. Hidden Wiltshire YouTube channel. So if you search on YouTube, by the time this comes out, you should be able to find it there.
But it's on the Facebook group as well.
Yeah,
I posted it last night, so you can go to either. So if you're not on Facebook, go to the YouTube and you'll see it there.
Great. Okay, what else have we done? Oh, we did the final Hidden Wiltshire Museum walk, which was at Fyfield Down, and took in the Devil's Den and the Sarsens up there. Even got as far as the Polisher Stone, so we had a good 6 mile stomp that day.
Yeah, it was a cracking
well attended.
Yeah,
it was well attended.
Good bunch of people.
Yeah.
So sadly, somebody had his car broken into at the car park, which we discovered at the end. Somebody put the back windscreen in. But, nothing stolen, but it's still a bloody nuisance and a right mess.
Yeah, that's a really disappointing end to that, actually. Seeing that happen. That was a car park up by Manton House. Yeah. Which is the sort of official car park for the Fyfield Down natural England area. So, so that was done. I think we probably need to arrange some sort of autumn-winter walks. Maybe not have them so often, but there's a couple I'd like to do. I think I'd really like to go out and over to the other side of the county, Hippenscombe around there, where you've got that famous Ravilius view, and the painting, which is called Downland, I think it's called.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. It's on my shelf up here,
Oh,
above my
okay.
head.
Yeah, so I think that painting is going to be in the exhibition at Wiltshire Museum. That's starting soon. So
25th September.
25th of September. So 25th September to I think the end of January.
Yeah.
Is going to be this fantastic release exhibition. Well worth going to Wiltshire Museum to have a look at that. Get yourself a ticket and get over there. But what we'll try and do is maybe one or two Revilius type walks over the period that the exhibition's open. So we can put some of these paintings in the context of the landscapes that they're in.
Yeah, and I think there's certainly, it's a beautiful part of the county. And I don't think any of us have really sort of been over there and done any walks there.
No.
So I've got a sort of rough walk plotted around Hip and Scone, but probably this afternoon I'm going to call one of the Facebook followers who knows the area extremely well, and she's offered to sort of help me put together a route. So I'm going to give her a call this afternoon.
Yeah, I think the closest I've been there, I did a walk at Collingbourne Wood, which is just to the south, by Ludgershall.
Ludgershall.
How do you say that?
Ludgershall.
Ludgershall.
Yeah.
I always have a speech impediment when I try and say that name. But there's
I got some friends who live there and they can't say it either.
Yeah, it's really on the Hampshire-Wiltshire border, isn't it? It's right on the edge.
Yeah.
But yeah, nice part of the world. Well worth exploring.
Yeah, and of course there was that sort of discussion in the Facebook group recently about blind houses. The sort of the lock-ups. Somebody put a picture of the of a building up on the, I can't remember what it's called now. Is it the Straight Mile or the Fair Mile, which cuts
Fair
across,
Mile? I think
Fair Mile, cuts across the downs there, heading in the direction of sort of Wilton Windmill, and the person posted a picture of this building, and it does indeed look like a blind house, but it's actually a water pumping station.
Yeah,
but it's pretty old and could easily be taken for a blind house.
Yeah.
I did a walk up there a couple of years ago, I think, and it's beautiful countryside. Again, lots of bottoms, downlands, sweeping views. Classic Wiltshire, really.
Yeah, fantastic. One last thing, there was a new post that went up on the website, the Hidden Wiltshire website at hiddenwiltshire.com, which was done by Steve Dewey, another river one. 9 Mile River, which I thought was curious because it's not 9 miles long.
No,
but it's just a fascinating tour down that river, which is again it's on the other side of the county, isn't it?
Yeah, it's sort of north of. It flows into Bulford, but it goes up the valley to north of Bulford. So I'm laughing because your cat. It's very vocal.
If people hear a cat, I apologise. I haven't quite found a solution to this noisy cat.
I've got one, but not for
here. But I'm sure we've got plenty of cat lovers. But the problem is, I had two cats, and they're a brother and sister, both 8 years old, and one of them died recently. Sadly, the boy died. His sister, who's been left behind, has just become the noisiest cat I've ever experienced in my life. I can't get it to shut up. So it's there outside the door at the moment.
She's outside. Bloody hell.
Yeah. I don't know.
I can hear it from here.
I know. I'm very
15
noisy.
15 miles away. I can hear it from here.
Oh dear.
Anyway, it makes a change from the traffic in the background here because we're recording this on a slightly different day, which we'll probably explain towards the end of the podcast. But it's not Rat Run Friday. It's peace and quietude Wednesday.
Right.
So I don't know about you, but I've not heard any traffic go past.
No, I haven't. Well, I think I heard one bit of traffic, but anyway, nothing like the normal rumble in the background. Okay. So shall we move on to this week's core topic?
Yeah.
Which is all about Erlestoke Wood and beyond. Right, so yeah, back onto this week's topic. Erlestoke Wood was the teaser, but it's not just about Erlestoke Wood. It's about much more than that. It starts where we're going to start the conversation is at Erlestoke Wood, but it's all linked to a walk we did with the museum folks a few weeks ago, which started at Erlestoke and then kind of went up onto Salisbury Plain, and sort of did a bit of a circuit up there. But we took in the actual field where big chunks of the movie 1917 were filmed as well. Although you wouldn't know that anymore because there's no sign of it at all. So you have to know what you're looking for. But yeah, we started Erlestoke's an interesting place, isn't it? I mean, a lot of people drive through it because you've got that road that runs from sort of Westbury to Market Lavington.
Yeah.
It's like a cut-through road, so, a lot of us drive along there. But unless you've got a reason to stop at Erlestoke, I don't know, maybe you want to buy a Skoda or something.
Yeah. Well, you say that's a superb garage. And I've been in there several times and tried to buy cars from them because I would just love to support them, but they've never quite had what we wanted. Because they also used to sell Subarus as well. Or they do sell Subarus still, and they're no longer a Skoda dealer because Skoda wanted a big fancy city centre showroom, and Erlestoke isn't. So but the guys there are absolutely brilliant. The great mechanics. So that's one reason to stop there, and the other reason, of course, is the pub. Which is a very good reason.
Which I think was closed for a bit, but it's now.
Yeah, I think they're in the process of preparing to reopen. There's been a lot of work going on there.
Yeah.
And of course, there is a third reason to stop there. Do you know what that is? The prison. Erlestoke Prison. Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
Which I'm sure you've spent many a happy hour in there.
Yeah, there is a prison, Erlestoke Prison. It's actually just up the hill as you come out of the village. Actually, that's an interesting location because it was built around what used to be the site of a manor house, which was built by some very rich chap from the past. I'll talk about him in a minute, actually, in context of Erlestoke Wood. But this manor house was built up there. Eventually, it got taken over by the government in some way. I'm not sure what the story about them buying it is. But yeah, it was government owned, and I think during World War II it was used as a training place for the Special Operations Executive, or the SOE.
Yeah, and somebody on the walk said that it was the Navy trained up there as well, and whether that was from that building or whether that was just trained in the woods.
Yeah, well, the MOD eventually transferred it to the prison service, so there's now a prison built up around it. But I believe that in the wood area, that is used for training by the Navy.
Yeah. And to your point about the SOE, your Special Operations Executive, during the war, where we parked right next to the church in the middle of Erlestoke, right by the road there. Again, I think it was the same chap who was telling us about the Navy. He sort of disappeared into the graveyard, didn't he? And was sort of rooting around in there. And he came back and said, "Oh, I found it." Found what? And there was and he sort of beckoned me over, and there was a gravestone. I'm just looking at a photograph I took of it, and there's a gravestone. It says, "Loving memories." Mary Louise Huntley Walker, who was, she was obviously English, British, whatever, but she was in the French Resistance. And she came from or lived in Erlestoke because she was buried in the graveyard there. Died in 1980, so she obviously sort of survived the war. And I meant to Google her and look her up and completely forgot, so maybe that's something people would want to do afterwards. But of course, thinking about it, the name like Marie Louise, she was more than likely French. So rather than sort of flying in and out of Erlestoke to to join her French resistance colleagues. She likely, I would guess, came to England after the war and married an Englishman, Mr. Huntley Walker, whoever he was. So, yeah, I mean, Mary Louise to me sounds very much like a French name.
Yeah, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was linked to that SOE thing, because a lot of them were trained to go out and support organisations like the French Resistance, and often some of these resistance folks around Europe were trained up by the British to go off and do some disruption and assassinations and the rest of it. I remember I attended a talk a few months ago by the Wiltshire-based historian Guy Walters, and it was set on Zoom over not Zoom, it was some Zoom equivalent over 5 nights, and it was all about the SOE, and he broke it down into different stories, like some guys went to attack a dam in Norway, and other ones went to assassinate a top German official whose name escapes me, but I should know, in the Czech Republic, and it was really interesting. So yeah.
Seems bizarre, doesn't it, to think of little old Erlestoke being a sort of pivotal, or maybe not too strong a word, but important to the sort of SOE operations in the war. I mean, why Erlestoke? How did they end up operating out of there?
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it?
I wonder if there's a sort of maybe there's a little airstrip up there that they used to fly them in and out of. That'd be nice to think that happened. Maybe it's the airstrip that Parsnip. Is it Parsnip? Turnip Airways.
Turnip
Airways operate out.
Yeah.
Up at Edmonton.
It's funny though, because I did a search for sort of Erlestoke jail to do a bit of research on it, and it threw up this YouTube clip that someone had taken. They shoved a drone up in the air and sort of done a perimeter fly around the whole prison, so you could get. I mean, it's a big site, you know.
That's against the law. You can't do that.
I know. It wasn't me.
I was going to say, I'm looking at you, Glyn.
Anyone in authority is listening to this, but it wasn't me. But it was a fascinating clip just to see the scale of the prison itself from the air. It was it's worth a look.
A friend of mine who, in fact, probably my oldest friend, I went to school with him from at the age of about 10, I think. He was a probation officer for many years. He's a very senior probation officer based in the southeast, but he used to come from sort of like Brighton way all the way over to Erlestoke to see clients, they call them, don't they? But so it was obviously, as a prison, it's obviously very important.
I think I've heard some funny stories about that prison over the years. I remember a while back there was a police alert that came out because one of the inmates was doing some grounds work, and he was driving the prison tractor, and he decided to make good his escape. So he drove the tractor out the front gate and went down the high street in West Lavington in this tractor. This police alert came out.
Superb.
This escaped convict who'd legged it in a tractor.
Yeah. He hadn't chipped it or something, had he? He was sort of 1,000 horsepower tractor.
Yeah.
Last seen heading towards Westbury.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Oh dear.
Did they catch him?
I think they did in the end, yeah. Of course, now I'm Googling it to see if I can find the news report. Because it was one of those things that really, really tickled me at the time.
Yeah. It's anyway, go on. You led the walk. Tell us where we walked.
So we started at just behind the church in Erlestoke is the sort of village car park, which is just opposite the entrance to the wood. So then you kind of go across the road, making sure that it's safe because it's a very busy road, and you go into the wood. Now the wood itself is interesting because you may pick this up as you walk through. It's not just a kind of natural piece of ancient woodland. It was designed as a kind of landscaped area in the sort of late 1700s, early 1800s. Because there was a local gentleman. He was actually the MP for Devizes, I think it was, a guy called Joshua Smith. obviously very rich, landed gentry and the rest of it. And what he did is he redesigned the village. So this is sort of between 1780 and 1810. He sort of rebuilt the manor house and put it at the site of Erlestoke Jail. He moved the village from where the wood is now to the high street as it is now, and created this sort of extended parkland in with the wood as kind of a landscaped area. And he put a pond in at the top, and there were some cascades built with the water coming down. And if you go in there and look around, you can kind of pick up that it's landscaped rather than a natural wood. And on top of that, and the edge of it is a walled cricket ground, which many people don't know about, but it's there in the edge of the wood.
That's kind of just behind the pub, isn't it?
Yeah.
Just before you go on, anybody who wants to sort of follow this, you posted a blog about this this month, didn't you? 6th of September.
Yep.
On the website, and it's just called Erlestoke Wood and the 1917 Field. And I think you've got a map as well, haven't you?
Yeah, there's a map of the route down the bottom.
Yeah,
some photos.
Yeah.
That allow you to follow along. But yeah, so you follow the track right through the wood until you kind of hit a pond. I think it's called Wellhead Pond on your left. And then you end up exiting the wood out into this quite a open area of grassland, which can be tremendously colourful in the spring. Actually, it's full of dandelions. You get this sort of yellow effect on the grasses, and of course, coming up through this wood has become very popular in the spring for bluebells. It has a fantastic show of bluebells, and word's gone around. So a lot of local people go there to get their bluebell fix in the spring.
Yeah, in fact, you've got you posted a photograph of the bluebells in that blog. I don't know whether you took it this spring or a previous year.
It's previous year, yeah.
Yeah, but I have to say it's one of my favourite bluebell photographs. That's just a stonkingly good photo.
Yeah. I think that was probably taken about 3 years ago, actually.
Right.
When I did a sort of bluebell. You know, that time, I've always been trying to get good bluebell photos. Bluebells are really hard to photograph and get the colours to match what you see with your eye. So that was a year. I just spent a week visiting bluebell woods and trying to nail some photos. And once I got them, I thought, that's it. I'm bluebelled out for the rest of my life now. I don't want to do it anymore.
Mind you, I think we said that on the podcast, so we're going to get complaints now. People saying, you're on about bluebells again.
I know. It's funny because when they come, it's quite exciting because you kind of feel spring is on the way and the good weather and the longer days. But by the end of the bluebell season, you're kind of sick of the sight of them. Anyway, let's move on from bluebells. In case we get more complaints.
We will get complaints.
But yeah, as you exit out of the wood, you're on this grassy plain. And if you look around you from that point, you can kind of see that ahead of you and all around there's like a horseshoe shape of woodland, which is outside of Erlestoke Wood. It's kind of a separate wood called Hillwood. So to your left you've got Hillwood, which is very steep going up the escarpment of Salisbury Plain. And sort of to your right there you've got Coulston Hollow. So there's a little road that comes up from the road that goes through Erlestoke that takes you up Coulston Hollow and up onto the plain. Quite a nice road, actually. It's just a little bit hair-raising because it's quite narrow. As you know, it's one of those roads where you don't really want to see someone coming the other way.
But that's near the top, isn't it, of the wood? So, again, you'd need to look at the map that you posted in your blog. But you sort of climb up through the wood, don't you, along the track? As you said, you've got Hillwood to your left, which is actually on the return route, which is very steep. But as we're going ahead, heading out to the plain, that was pretty steep as well. And then right at the very top, before you sort of make a turn, you reach. Actually, it's another hollow. We were talking about hollows earlier on. I think on the map it's actually it's just marked as hollow. Yes, I think you said you called it
Coulson
Hollow.
Hollow.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I can see that now. But I mean, I've driven up there and I've cycled up there a few times, and it's doable in a car. It's very easy. I mean, it's
I've
almost
been up there.
Yeah, it's almost tarmac. The only thing is it's quite narrow, but there are passing places.
Yeah.
So you're not sort of completely stuck if you encounter something. You just have to somebody has to pull into a passing space. But it is quite steep, so hill starts can be quite a challenge on there if you do have to stop.
Yeah, and I think as we were walking through the wood there, sort of parallel to that road, we saw another sort of sunken path in the wood itself that looked like a hollow. Maybe it was an old track that went up there. But the main road is tarmacked; it's drivable.
Yeah, and it's pretty popular with dog walkers. People sort of drive up there and sort of get to the point where the track becomes rough, and they sort of park their cars up there and then walk their dogs.
Yeah, and the route I chose, we were trying to kind of head up the hill diagonally, because in Hillwood itself there are some tracks that kind of go straight up the front face of the escarpment, and it's bloody steep.
Yeah,
and you don't really want to be doing that. You want to try and find a sort of more diagonal route. In fact, it's so steep on the map. I mean, the contours are so close together; it's almost like created a brown.
Yeah, it's just a thick brown line, isn't it? You do, and I guess because of that, I think there are a lot of guys on their motorbikes use the woods there, and they go hurtling around, and there does seem to be a bit of a conflict between walkers and motorbikes up there, and from what I can see looking at this map, motorbikes they shouldn't be up there. There's no byways.
They shouldn't be in the wood. That's the problem.
Yeah, it's footpaths. It's not open access, so they legally they shouldn't be there.
Yeah. Anyway, but when you get to the top of the wood, you kind of come out onto the plateau of Salisbury Plain, and if you look behind you, then you've got a fantastic vista of view across to the Pewsey Downs.
Yeah.
So you can see the Alton Barnes White Horse, and you can see from the left it sort of starts at Roundway and then goes all the way across to the far side of the Pewsey Downs. Fantastic view. And you know you're in the right place when you look ahead and you see a kind of water. It's not a water tower thing, it's like a water storage thing by the road.
I don't remember that. Oh yeah, yes, the reservoir.
Yeah. It's quite a big square thing.
That's right. It's right by the track, isn't it? Or the Imber Range path or track, the perimeter track. It's on there.
Yeah. And then what you do is you'll hit the main byway. There's kind of it goes from being tarmac to gravel and potholes and stuff by Stoke Hill Farm.
Yeah.
So that Stoke Hill Farm, is that actually a working farm?
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm pretty certain it is, because I drove down there once by mistake and had to sort of turn around and come back up. Yeah. And there was a couple of like farm vehicles parked in there. So I'm almost certain it is a working farm. But that track I mentioned, the Imber Range path, it's actually called the Imber Range Perimeter Path, and as you say, it's a combination of sort of track and a bit of tarmac. It's a byway, so you can drive on it, and quite a lot of people do. If you're going to do it in a car, then take it very, very slowly, because there's some damn big holes in it.
Yeah. I drove up there a few months ago, and it was very potholed, very hard to navigate around. But it is quite well. That area up there is quite well used by the military.
Yeah.
I think when I went over there in the summer, there was a lot of activity up there, a lot of military vehicles. They blocked off some of the fields, with temporary blocks to keep people out of them. And yeah, over down by a New Zealand farm, it was very, very active.
Yeah, New Zealand farm, which we don't go quite as far as that, do we, on the walk?
No.
But you can see it. I think you can see it in the distance. I mean, New Zealand's farm camp is a very, very active military camp, and it's off limits, so you can't go in there. Although a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, they had a sort of festival there, like a sort of rave.
Oh, right.
Obviously with the MOD's blessing, just turn up and have a rave in an army camp.
You might get shot.
Yeah, unless you want to end up in Erlestoke prison. It was a sort of organised thing. But I was chatting to somebody on the walk and saying, what an ideal place to have it, really, because you're miles away from any habitation. You're not going to disturb anybody, other than the whoever lives at Stoke Hill Farm. They might hear it. But it's really tucked away.
Yeah, but what you're trying to do here is, if on this particular walk we stayed on the byway until there was an opening on the right into the field that opens up there, which is just to the south of the byway. Before you get there, though, there is a sort of right of way that takes you down through some woods, right to the edge of the Imber Range. I've walked down there before, and you get some fantastic views. But it's not well used at all, that, because the track actually takes you through some woods, and it was very overgrown. I had to hack my way through. But yeah, that's an interesting diversion. But on this particular route, we were staying on the byway. Now, one of the things that is a landmark there from that byway when you look onto the field is the solitary tree, which we kind of call it the lollipop tree. I'm not sure why, or whether that's
because it looks like a lollipop.
Yeah, could be. That might be a giveaway. But this tree is very, I don't know, it's just unique. It stands out. It's interesting.
Although I think, unless you've seen a picture of it, you probably wouldn't give it much of a second glance. You might notice it, as you say, because it's on its own and it's a slightly unusual shape. But I think some of the people we took up there didn't know what it was and its significance, which we'll come on to in a second. And we had to point it out. And said, look, it's that tree over there. Look, across the field there, it's that tree. Oh yes, yeah. And they just hadn't twigged,
Yeah.
Pardon the pun.
But hadn't twigged. That was funny. But yeah, the tree itself, it's been photographed by some of us quite a bit. I think you've had a go at it. Steve Dewey's had a good go at it. I've had a go at it.
Yeah.
And it's one of my sort of favourite trees to try and photograph. But I hope the tree has a good agent, because it took a starring role in the movie 1917.
Yeah.
Particularly in the end scene. So at the end of the movie, the main character is walking up to this tree at the end of the journey that he's been on throughout the movie, which is quite emotional and poignant. And he just wanders up to the tree and he sits down and leans against it at the end and opens up his wallet to look at the letters and photos. And it's
he's about to write a letter, isn't he?
Yeah.
To his colleague who was killed, and he sat down to write a letter to, I guess, his parents.
Yeah. But it's a very moving scene, and that tree is they chose that tree especially because they thought it would create an atmosphere. I remember seeing a sort of behind the scenes documentary about it, and they were saying that when they were scouting for locations, they go driving along the byways on the plain, and they just looked across this tree, and it wasn't just the tree in the end, because they took over the whole field.
Yeah.
And a big chunk of the opening 15 minutes is actually filmed in that field. So they dug out loads of trenches and made it look like the trenches in France in World War One.
Yeah. And you just wouldn't know now, would you? There's just no sign of it that they've been there at all.
No sign. They came in, it would have been about 3 years ago.
Yeah.
Dug it all up, created this really elaborate film set. And when they left, they just filled it all in, and you wouldn't know.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier on the ponds where they built the French farmhouse set, where the aircraft crashes, the German aircraft sort of crash lands there, and they did the same. That was all dug up, and now you wouldn't know they'd been there, other than the fact that the pond that has been there for forever has dried up and never come back. So I don't know what they did, but they've, the pond is now no more, which is such a shame. But otherwise, I mean, they have to sign all sorts of undertakings to sort of restore the environment. In fact, when they were filming it a bit over my neck of the woods, there's a stand of trees. It's called High Trees, and it sits on a ridge looking down over that pond, and where they built the French farmhouse. And they did some of the early scenes up there where they're sitting in a wood singing hymns before they go off to battle, and that was filmed at High Trees. So in order to build the setup there, they had to do a lot of work on the tracks, which in the sort of anything other than summer, they're just a quagmire, because it's chalk and it's clay, and it's just it's just a mud fest. And I was talking to some of the guys who were doing the work up there, and and they made a great job of it, because obviously they're having to bring a whole load of vehicles up there, vehicles, film company vehicles up to the site, and they were having to ferry personnel up there, actors, cast, all that stuff. So it had to be a really good track. And they said that they'd approached the MOD and said, look, we've got to build this track, we've got to make it really durable, and we can leave it like that if you like, and then you've got a good serviceable track. And the MOD said, no, it's got to be reinstated exactly as it was, i.e. chalk and clay track, and that's what it is. And in fact, I cycled up it the other day, and it's already starting to become quite muddy because of sort of recent rain. And in a couple of months' time, it'll be a quagmire again.
It's funny how these organisations work, isn't it?
But it's fair enough. I mean, it shows the MOD's conservation credentials, I think. Yeah,
but on going back to this field here, on the website where I've got this article written, have a look at it. You'll see a good picture of the tree, but also I've dropped into it 2 YouTube clips. One of the ending scene and one of the starting scene, which are filmed in that field. And it's interesting because I once went into this field. Would have been last year before the lockdown started, and I had my phone with me, and I watched the first 9 minutes of the movie on my phone in the field, in the exact spot where it was filmed. So I had my phone in front of me, and then I would look up from the phone and see the actual scene in real life behind it, as it is now. It was a very interesting experience. I'd recommend doing that just for a laugh. It just brings it alive a bit more.
Well, you'd printed off some still pictures, hadn't you? And so when we were up there with the people on the walk, that was really helpful to sort of hold up the pictures, and with your back to the tree and showing people, look at the picture and then look at the scene, and that's when it kind of dawned on a few people who didn't know about it. Yeah.
And of course, knowing all this, when I watched the film, it spoiled it a bit for me, because you're supposed to suspend your disbelief and think you're in France, and I just kept recognising Wiltshire in it.
Yeah, one or two people were saying that. I mean, when we went to see it, it was sort of, oh look, there's so and so, and oh look, recognise that. You're trying to spot places that you know.
Yeah, and they also had a lot of the extras in the film were local lads.
Yeah.
So quite a lot of local young men were in the movie itself, and in the woods and stuff. And well, I told you that story when we were on the walk. I probably told you before, but a friend of my son's was an extra in the film. In fact, he was in the hospital tent towards the end. He was one of the wounded, and you do see his. I think you see his feet, because he's got one boot on and one off. Yeah. And after they'd finished some film or breaking the filming, he sort of wandered over to that tree with his one boot on, and he was busting to go to the loo, so he stood behind the tree and had a pee up against it, because not knowing that it would become such a star in its own right.
and that actor would sit down with his back against the tree.
Oh dear.
Yes. It'll soak away. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was just a pea.
Yeah. Thankfully. Let's stop this conversation. Moving on. So once you've had a look around the field, you then start to follow the route back. So the route that we took here, what I did is I took the group down a trackway which leads down to Cheverel Hill Farm, I think it is, which is sort of at the bottom of a bottom, really.
Bottom of the bottom, yes.
Here we go again. Bottoms. We'll be getting told off again.
Yeah, so we came down Great Cheverel Hill
yes.
to Cheverel Hill Farm.
Yeah, and some of the views from there are absolutely stunning.
Yeah, again, you're kind of like, this time you're facing the right direction, aren't you? So the views are all in front of you instead of having to sort of stop and check behind you all the time to look at the views.
Yeah.
As I said before, as if an old photographer's saying that quite often the best view is the one behind you.
Yeah.
But yeah, there it all sort of opens up in front of you.
Yeah. And the farm itself is not a working farm. This one, it's military buildings really now.
Yeah.
But the farm itself is in a bit of a dip. So as you're going down the dip, the views open up across. If you look towards across towards Hill Bottom Farm that way, the views are fantastic. So it's worth having a look. And I'm just noticing there on the map between Great Cheverel Hill and Hill Bottom Farm, there's a triangle of open access land on the. It's totally random.
Yeah. I did do a walk around there a couple of years ago. I can't see that open access land, though, that you're referring to. Oh, yes, I found it. Oh, yeah, that is weird, isn't it?
Yeah.
That is... Oh, it's tiny. What's that all about?
That's very weird.
And, of course, as we talked before, with open access land, sometimes it is just sort of isolated on its own.
Yeah.
But I think you are permitted to reach it from the nearest, publicly accessible bit of land. But oh God, YouTube started on my phone for some reason. But there's no. Well, the nearest public right away is the one we've just in the walk we walked down to get to Cheverel Hill Farm.
Yeah, and I guess it's with this being MOD land. And it's not.
Yes, you.
In the danger area, there is a sort of permissive.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's
right to roam.
Yes, So that's how you reach it. In which case, that being open access, that little triangle would seem to be redundant.
Yeah.
Because it's all open.
It looks
access
like someone's
anyway.
just put that on the map for a laugh, really.
Yeah. In fact, looking at the track we came down to Great Cheverel Farm. It is just a track. There isn't. There's a public right of way to the east of it.
Yeah,
but that is a bridle way. So you could ride my bike down there, but but the track we walked down, in theory, I shouldn't ride my bike down there because it's not a bridle way. You can only walk. You can only walk on it, not ride on it. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. That is all open access. I'm not sure where the MOD land finishes though, because the walk that I did was I started from the Imber Range perimeter path. I parked sort of on the tarmac bit of the road, which is further towards Gore Cross and the sort of the gateway on to Imber Village. So there's a really good bit of tarmac road, and there's some lay-bys there. So I did a walk from up there and then descended into the sort of the valleys and then up over what's called Fore Hill. And I actually ended up in Little Cheverel, and that's I guess for another day. But there's some beautiful walks around there, and you can string together a load of sort of footpaths and bridleways. Yeah, and it's one of these places where I think I saw one other person walking there.
Yeah. I mean, I'm intending to go back and explore more of that area over the next few months, because it's a place I've kind of driven through and by and looked at longingly, but never really got my boots on and gone walking around there.
And I think you mentioned that you can see Milk Hill and the White Horse over that way. I also remember sort of on Fore Hill, which I mentioned just now, which is just to the east of the farm, Cheverell Hill Farm, and it's not very far east of it. But I remember looking out there from there, looking north, and you could see Devizes, and you could see Leipzig Plantation and the White Horse at Roundway as well.
Yeah,
from there. So again, the view, you're pretty high up, and the views are fantastic.
Yeah. But the route from Cheverell Hill Farm, you kind of follow the road that goes up steadily uphill and takes you back into Hillwood.
So it goes up to on the map Pear Tree Hill, doesn't it?
Yeah,
so
it does.
See Pear Tree Hill on your map.
Yeah, and then it's a case of just finding a way down from Hillwood back into Erlestoke Wood, and there are some diagonal paths marked on the map, which are passable with care, I would say. They're quite steep.
They were very steep, weren't they?
Yeah.
And
there's been, when we were there, there's obviously been quite a lot of forestry work been going on because there were tank tracks and all sorts.
Yeah, taking down ash trees and stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that would, again, I think sort of motorbikes have been hurtling down some of those tracks.
Yep.
Mind you, there was one we were looking at where you could see the tyre marks of a trail bike had gone up to the edge, and it was almost vertical.
Yeah.
If anybody's gone down there, I mean, he's got a death wish.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just a little sort of drop off. This was a long descent and it's very, very steep.
And it is so steep, it really is almost vertical. I mean, you'd be stupid to go down there. But
and I don't know if you noticed, but the runoff at the end, so once you reach the bottom, I mean, there wasn't like, a quarter of a mile to slow down. It just stops.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if anybody gone down there, they probably didn't survive.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I do remember years ago when I was chatting to one of the people on the walk. I did a mountain bike race on around sort of Imber Range, and it was something like New Year's Day or the 2nd of January, and there'd been a really heavy snowfall, and it was gale force winds, there was snow drifts. I mean, the conditions were just brutal, and it was a mountain bike race, I think I said, and we finished in the woods there, and I do remember coming down one of those tracks sort of through the woods, very, very steep, and we'd just come off sort of like open downland, so nothing to stop the wind. I got blown off my bike and I broke my seat post, so basically the saddle snapped off, so I had to come down through these woods with no saddle, being very, very careful not to sit down because that would have been eye-watering.
Yeah.
And my saddle was stuffed in my jersey pocket, in my back pocket.
Oh, that would have been a sight to behold.
It would have been if I'd sat down.
Yeah. So you'll end up coming out at just opposite Erlestoke Wood, so you can retrace your steps back down. It's a nice circular route, and I think I'm definitely going to go back up that way to do a bit more exploring around Fore Hill, Strawberry Hill, Hill Bottom Farm. Yeah. Very interesting landscape.
Yeah, it's really lovely there. I think somebody was saying that they'd done some walks up through Erlestoke Park Wood, where we kind of start, and there are sort of different trails through the wood, aren't there? But I think some of them are quite overgrown, and I think, didn't you say that you found yourself knee deep in a stream at some point trying to find your way through there?
I found myself on the wrong side of a stream and had to navigate across it, got my feet wet. There's plenty of little tributary paths to wander and explore, because there's quite a lot of dog walkers go there. So,
but I think they tend to sort of go part way up the wood, turn around and go back to Erlestoke.
They do, yeah.
Whereas the walk we did was quite a lot further and took us right, as you say, right up to the plains. So it's worth venturing a bit further. It will be very, very muddy though in winter.
Yes, it will.
If it's wet. It was even a bit muddy when we did it in places. So this will be a quagmire.
So let's wrap up this week's podcast and start with a thanks to Steve Dixon for the music, as always. This week's bit in the middle was called When Swallows Rise.
Again, lower boots and walking shoes offer still there. Lower.co.uk. Discount code HW20 for 20% off at checkout. Website for the show notes with links and the online shop. And also don't forget the newsletter.
Yes. Which I'll stick another one out next week, I think.
Yeah.
That'll talk about this podcast and other things. And in the meantime, I'm going to go back to writing my book.
Shh! Don't tell him. Don't tell him. Don't tell him, Pike.